Hello everyone, welcome back. Well, we're in a different location today, in a different country. We're in Sweden, another Nordic country, an independent Nordic country. And we are in our wee small holding here. Now, if you have already bought our book, blatant plug coming up, Meadows, available through the website. If you've read it, you'll know that we have a little small holding over here. My husband's Swedish and he was farming, he had a farm. So by having a little small holding, we've still got a foot in the earth, so to speak. No animals because we're not here all the time, but we have got a little orchard, 11 heritage apple trees and a Victoria plum. And I'm surrounded at the moment by apple blossom. It's May. And by the time you see this, we'll be back in Scotland again, but we're just over for a few days. Busa has got one of his piggy meetings for his rare breed pigs that he's the chair of the board, and we're over for the AGM. So that's what we're up to. And we thought we'd have a pork theme today, as we're here because of pigs. So in addition to the fruit trees, we have a hay meadow that you can also see behind me there. It's coming along beautifully, lovely and green. I think you can also see the apple blossom. And we harvest the hay, Busa scythes it, hangs the hay racks, which you see on the cover of the book, and that goes to animal feed as well. So there's lots about it in the book, along with 100 recipes. And today we're going to feature pork. And we don't have my little cuckoo clock today. However, you will hear a lot of bird song in the background because there's flycatchers, green and black woodpeckers, great tits, blue tits, red starts. So there's a lot of birds around and a lot of lovely bird song. So I've got the pan on the heat here. And I'm going to add a little bit of pork dripping that I've got from a previous recipe, so nothing wasted. You know, keep fat from previous recipes, keep it in the fridge, and it's perfect for the next recipe, so don't bin things. And I've got some lovely free-range pork here. Now, if I was in Scotland, I would be telling you that there's Macbeth Sephora's source, lovely heritage pork. There's also the lovely Brand family, Jane Brand at Brand Family Larder, great source of outdoor reared pork. Ramsay, also bacon, outdoor reared, gammons. So if you look on the website, scottishfoodguide.scot, you will find sources of outdoor reared pork. I do not have any truck with indoor reared pork. These sort of fast growing breeds need to be kept indoors. If it's too cold, they get a chill. If it's too hot, they get sunburn. Pigs were made to be outside and rooting. And in fact, by the time you see this, there will also be a blog up about Busa's piggy meeting, and you will see what natural pigs do, rooting around. They want to be outside, they want to be digging, and the idea of keeping them closeted up in tight containment is just not kind, not good. It's not high animal welfare, in our opinion, and we write about it a lot in our book as well. That it's not about the meat eating per se, it's the industrialization of meat. So we need to think about the amount of meat we eat, where it comes from. So this cooker is on really hot, so they got a lovely sear, and you'll see that the pork is darker than what you might get from your average supermarket. And I've cut it into quite small pieces because when you have your little stir-fry pieces or casserole pieces nice and small, they will cook more quickly, saves you time, saves you money on fuel. So I've cut them quite small. And I'm going to put in some of my salt, which I've mixed with some dried herbs, so it's a kind of herb salt here. Put some of that on. And a generous dose of black pepper, because we love pepper in this house. And I'm just going to let this sear in the pan, which is doing beautifully. Now, when you have a heritage breed, when you have a grass-fed ruminant, which obviously this isn't today, but when you know where your animals come from and the feed that they eat and the breed that they are, they have more flavour. And when they have more flavour, you can have a little bit less in the pan. So although it's a higher cost, you buy less of it. So when I hear, oh, we need to eat less meat, it's the climate, we need to eat better meat. And we need to ask where the meat comes from. And really bring a halt to this intensive, particularly pork and particularly chicken. It's not quite so easy to rear cows and sheep intensively, but the pork and chicken market are just not good at all. And we can only do that by supply and demand, voting with our feet. So I would urge you to think carefully about the pork you buy and the chicken you buy. I think I've said before on this channel that our only native Scottish pig is now extinct. It has been since the early 50s. It was called the Grice, G-R-I-C-E. But in Sweden, there is one that still exists called the Linderud. And that's the meeting that Bruce is here to go to. And that's the one of the breeds that we talk about in our book. The importance of keeping these breeds. Some people think, oh, it's just a fad or it's a bit hipster to think about these old breeds. It is how we reclaim our planet. It is how we keep biodiversity safe. We need the other breeds. If we rely on big business, corporate money, they will just narrow the genetics till they're so dependent on one climate or one feed. That's not good for our planet. Now this was on a high heat and look at it, it's looking fantastic already. So I'm going to add in some onions I've got here, just sliced quite thickly, quite a rustic country dish. Add them to the pan. Keep it up on a high heat. You're getting that lovely brown colour, it's sealing in the flavour, it's caramelising the meat, and that also means that it will give a lovely rich gravy when it comes to that time as well. Now, pork has an absolute affinity with apples, with cider, and so we're going to introduce apples today, and I've got here some apples from the small holding here. Now, you might think they look a little bit discoloured and not particularly appetising, but that's only because at the end of the season, I quartered them, cored them, I didn't peel them, chucked them in a freezer bag and forgot about them. Because they're perfect for chucking into a casserole or a stir fry. Absolutely perfect. They're delicious and they're now quite soft and pulpy and juicy. Look at that juice. So they're absolutely perfect. None of the juice has been lost. And these are straight off one of the apple trees that surround me here. So free food. And come September, October, in Scotland, we have a glut of apples. And if you look hard enough, you will find somebody who's got a bucket at their door begging you to take some for free. So the last thing you want to do come apple season is buy apples, because there's always a friend or a street corner that's got some to spare. People tend to get a little bit overwhelmed with the number of apples you get from one tree. So bear that in mind, that you know, it's really lovely to use Scottish apples in season. A bit like strawberries. It's May. Now you can start eating strawberries. I think you can even get a Scottish tomato. Whereas we try and keep off tomatoes until they're in season in Scotland. I can hear that bird song, and I can hear the sizzle of my fork as well here. We're also going to add some potatoes today, and I've got Golden Wonder today from the local shop, but very soon we won't need to be buying potatoes because we have crops of potatoes planted here and in Scotland. So we're growing pink fir, Epicure, which is the Ayrshire early, and Adam Victory, which is a fantastic old rounder and great for roast potatoes. What other ones? I'm sure there's another one we're growing as well. Come back to me. It'll come back to me in the next take. But do look out for these lovely old varieties. And Andrew Ski is your man in Scotland, the potato house. And he is still, now this is going out in May, he has still got potatoes, little nets of potatoes for a patio, a pot. He'll sell you a grow bag. Don't know if he calls it that, but he'll sell you a bag that you can grow your spuds in. So if you just have a kitchen doorstep, you can still grow some potatoes. It's a fantastic way to introduce kids to growing and for you to get some lovely fresh own potatoes. And he's got them on really bargain offers just now because it is getting near the end of the season. So look out for him. The Potato House. You'll find him on Scottish Food Guide. So these are softening nicely, roasting away. And I'm going to add in some potatoes. I'm just going to cut these into quarters because they're going to have time enough to cook. So that kind of size. You want, the thing about the meat and the potatoes is have things evenly sized, and then nothing is overcooked and nothing turns to mush. I have them all about the same. Another lovely potato, which we haven't planted this year, but we have before, is called Highland Burgundy Red. It's a lovely pink potato that stays pink. So we're going to add these in. Now that the onions are nicely sauteed and the meat is browned all over, we're going to add in these apples to give it some nice juice. And I have the end of a bottle of cider, and I'm just going to add it. Now if you don't have cider, that's fine. There's enough flavour in there that water will be terrific. But it just happens I have about a cupful left. So I thought I would just sling it in and use it up. I'm a great one for adding things that are in the fridge that make sense. Now, a couple of other ingredients, and then we're going to put the lid on and let it cook away. So what else have I got here? Well, I've got some mushrooms, which could have been added into the sauteing if I hadn't been talking so much, but they'll be fine. So I'm going to halve them and add them to the mix. Just some little normal, bog standard little mushrooms. Later in the year, you can maybe go on a foraging walk. There's people in Scotland very keen to show you the right mushroom, but don't do it on your own because some of them are not only inedible, but will make you quite ill. So these are just normal shop mushrooms. I'm going to add them in as well. We've got a lovely pan full of ingredients here. And we already have here some beautiful marjoram. Now, I love my marjoram here. The flowers are beautiful. The bees and the butterflies you get are incredible. In Scotland too, we have heaps of marjoram. So I'm going to add some of these to the pot for some lovely flavours. And I'm just going to strip the leaves off and add them in. And they'll be delicious. Now with that in, we're going to put the lid on the pan and leave it to do its own thing for about 20 minutes. Just back to check up on the pan here. It's probably had about 15 minutes so far, so we'll lift off the lid. It's good to have a decent lid on a decent pan because then you can really keep in all these flavours. Now you could chuck these all in and put it in the oven, but I would only do that if I had other things in the oven at the same time. So this is looking really good, and the potatoes are almost done. The meat was nice and small, so it's done, and you can see we've got beautiful juices there. Really delicious. Now I was going to have a little look at it just to see that it was still lovely and moist, because if I wanted to, I can just add a little bit of water. Just it depends, normally depends more on, that was about an egg cupful. Normally depends on how tight your lid is. If there's water escaping or juices escaping from your lid, then you probably will have to do another top up. But that is coming on a treat, and I'm going to turn it down a little bit for the last few minutes. Couple of things that I wanted to mention the last time was that with the marjoram, this dries beautifully. So when it's in season, use it, enjoy it in salads and dishes, raw, cooked. But when you start getting more and more and it's getting later on, then you can dry it. And it's absolutely beautiful all year round to add to dressings, to casseroles, to vegetarian fish dish, meat dish. It's not as strong as a thyme, so it's far more adaptable and really good. But I also mix it with some thyme and rosemary for a kind of bouquet garni, a mixed herb as well. So that's one thing I wanted to say. And the other thing I wanted to say was that Busa has given me these today, which are just so beautiful. They're alder tree, and sometimes you see these for quite a price in shops. And he has cut them when he was taking a tree down here. And I'll take some of these back because when they're sanded down, they're so lovely as a pot stand, or even for some Christmas decorations, or even as a cheese board. If they're sanded down, they have natural bacteria in them from the tree, and they are so beautiful. The colours are so beautiful. So we've got the herbs in, a little bit of liquid if you need it, and we'll give that another 5 minutes or so. And straight back with a pudding. So you've got a lovely 2-course summer meal. So for our dessert today, for pudding, we're going to do meringues. We love meringues in this household, and my dear aunt who passed away during COVID was the queen of meringues in our house. So I feel there has to be a tradition carried on here, and I must make sure that I teach my children good meringues. I thought I would do meringues today because as a summer treat, any time of the year actually, they're fantastic. But as the weather gets better, you can add in berries and things as well. And today, in fact, we've got some bramble jam from the small holding here that I'm going to drizzle over the top, which is delicious. It's really nice. Bramble jam also works really well for my ice cream recipe, which is also in the book. So we might do that later in the year, we'll see. So I've got 3 egg whites in here. Now my custard recipe, also in the book, calls for 3 egg yolks, and I get left with 3 egg whites all the time. So I know when I go to the freezer and I pick out a bowl with frozen egg whites, it'll be 3. But if you're using the odd egg white or using the odd egg yolk for something, then when you wrap it in the freezer, take a pen and write 1 or 2 or whichever, 4, because you will never remember when the time comes. So you need to know how many egg whites you have in your bowl. They defrost easily overnight. They're as good as new. And you want 50 grams of sugar for every egg white. So I have got, so a tablespoon, one of Granny's tablespoons, is 25 grams. So I need 2 of those for every egg white. So 3 egg whites, I need 6 of those. So it's dead easy. And I'm going to show you it in live time because people get worried about meringues and they are so simple. So start off, nice big bowl. And you really need an electric whisk for it. Now, when you have it nice and frothy, holding its own shape in the bowl, like that, then you add your sugar. Now, you should be adding your sugar gradually, but gradually doesn't mean slowly. It can be quite fast and quite quick, and you can be eating, well, certainly baking your meringues in no time. Now, today I've used white sugar, but those of you that have watched other programs will know I often use brown, and brown sugar meringues are also delicious. But if you want snowy white ones, it's the one time that I do use white sugar, and I thought I would today. Basically because the ones I made earlier are white sugar, so they'll match the ones I made earlier. So I'm going to put the beaters on. When I put the beaters on, listen, because to start with, you're going to hear quite a loud rattle. And that's what a lot of people do. They have the beaters down on the bottom of the bowl. But if you just raise them a little bit from the bottom of the bowl, then you hear the sound of the beaters, but you don't hear the rattle. And not only does that mean that it's a bit more pleasant, but also they're far more efficient. They're working the egg whites. They're not scraping along the bottom of your bowl, which is slowing them down. So it's a good little tip for more effective beaters. So I'll just add the sugar gradually and keep the whipping going. But listen to that first noisy bit, and then when I lift them that little bit. Now I'm going to make a little bit more noise just to make sure there's none left around the sides of the bowl, and then we're ready to put them on the tray. wasn't difficult, was it? Very simple. Now the baking of meringues is another tip. So what you want is to have a nice bit of baking parchment, non-stick paper like this. And like the bowl that I'm using, quite a big bowl, you want to have some decent space for them on the tray as well, because they do expand a little bit. They're full of air, and that air is going to expand in the heat of the oven. So we line them up, and of course you can pipe these if you want to as well, but I'm not planning on doing that. I'm just going to spoon them on and keep them relatively distant from each other, and the 3 eggs will fit nicely on this tray. Now the next thing is the baking of them. Meringues favour a low temperature, about 140. Sometimes I start the oven at about 150 or about 150, and keep an eye. And if I think they're going to go slightly golden, then I turn it down. But it can help just to let them set a little bit in the first instance. So keep it down then at about 130 for about an hour until they feel set. So that when you touch them, they do feel set and a little bit biscuity. Now at that point, then you can turn the oven off. And so I usually always make meringues in the evening. This is unusual for me today, because then you turn them off and you leave them in that oven overnight, and there's warmth in that oven and they dry out, because it's drying out you want to encourage for the meringues to fully be what you want them to be. Like so. And here's some that we're going to fill with whipped cream and finish with bramble jam that I made overnight last night. And they're lovely, they're crispy, they're lovely, and exactly what I want. And they will keep in that state for weeks. They are dry. They are dried out. What you have to make sure you do is you keep them in an airtight tin or covered with cling film, because the steam from the kitchen or even the moisture from the air will make them absorb moisture and go a flabby imitation of their former glory. So you've got to keep them dry until you're going to use them. But we're going to fill those for today's dessert, and we're going to put these in the oven. So I've whipped up some double cream here, ready to go. And here are our meringues. Lovely and crisp. And some of our own bramble jam from the small holding here. And of course, there's heaps of brambles in Scotland, along every canal side, lots of wild places, all over the place. Just make sure that you pick them above dog level and don't get run over when you try and pick them, so take care. But they are unmistakable. You can't pick the wrong thing. Brambles are brambles, and they make the most delicious jam. So do look out for that as well. By the way, I remembered the potato. The other potato that we are growing is Golden Wonder, and the ones in the pan are King Edward. So that's the mystery of the potatoes. That was a little moped going by there. So I'm going to generously pile in the cream, sandwich them together, and I know there's going to be a lot of happy people in this household this afternoon, because these are going to get shared with friends. See, like so. And at this point my husband will be hoping there's an odd one. I haven't counted them, so I don't know whether they're odd or even at the moment. Oh, they're even. Any leftover cream will be for our breakfast coffee in the morning. Absolutely nothing wasted in this house. There we are, and one more will fit in there nicely. The pork is ready as well. And I'm going to scatter some fresh marjoram and some fresh dandelion on the top. Yeah, we're going really May here, because they're ready, they're in season, and they're edible, and they're cheery. So there we have our meringues, and I'm going to put a little drizzle of this bramble jam on top of each. It really makes the colour and the flavour is just lovely. Little drizzle on each, it'll drizzle down and it'll be magic. There we are. So meringues with brambles. And, oops, got myself cream on me here. And last but not least, we've got our delicious pork here. It's all juicy and cooked and flavoursome. And you can freeze any leftovers, so you know there's no excuse for any leftovers. It'll be absolutely fine, but it'll be fine the next day as well, and really delicious. So I'm going to take it off the heat so it doesn't dry out, and pile some in a bowl here for you to see. So the mushrooms, the apples, it's all looking great. And there was only about 200 grams of pork in there, so that you can really enjoy the flavours of the meat without buying a ton of the stuff. So it's entirely up to you. But you have the power as a shopper to decide which pork you're having and how you're going to eat it. And we're going to put a little bit of marjoram on the top. And these dandelions, literally, you can put on the top. And it just brings it a little bit of spring to your dish. Why not? So, I hope you've enjoyed today's recipes and a little holiday. A little bit of May sunshine and May bird song, and see you next month. Bye.